We're not so different, you and I.
There's no denying movies are full of clichés. Most of them I don't mind because they take up a small part of the movie, but there are some clichés that just make me sigh each time I see them. They've lost their charm, they're rarely used in a clever way, or they weren't interesting to begin with, and therefore I made my top 10 worst movie clichés. And as always, this list is purely opinion based, and these are only clichés from movies I've seen. Let's not waste any more time and start the list.
Oh, I can't tell you that. Otherwise I'd have to kill you.
Number 10. Opening credits that continue during the story. This is something that is often overlooked. Sometimes credits roll during the beginning of a movie or TV show episode, even though the story already began. This cliché is mostly distracting, given the fact that I try to follow the story but credits roll for no apparent reason. It feels like the movie says that the story isn't important yet, so you can look at the credits in order to pass some time. This is something that happens in every single episode of Breaking Bad, and movies like The Mask, Ride Along, and Mrs. Doubtfire. Sometimes the credits are in front of the subtitles, making it harder to read. I don't mind reading credits, in fact, I'm interested in them, but show them before you tell the story or afterwards, but not during the actual story. That's just distracting. Number 9. Famous last words. This is when a character unexpectedly gets wounded and ends up dying, but the character stays alive long enough to say some final words. Usually they say something with good intention, like expressing their feelings towards the protagonist, or they give a vague clue for what is to come.
It's not what it seems.
The reason why I don't like this cliché is because all the characters say similar things, and it never feels like something an actual human would say in that situation. It feels more like a cheap way to make a death sadder or to keep the plot going. I always like it more when a character dies abruptly. Those deaths feel more realistic.
It's alright, listen.
However, the only times this cliché works is either if it's a main character and it happens near the end of the movie, or when a character isn't in pain and actually knows he or she is going to die. Then, the character has plenty of time to think of words to say and the words have more meaning. Unlike this cliché, which is overused and uninteresting. Number 8. Story starts with happy life and is followed by death or separation. This cliché is used in movies like In Time, Ghost Rider, World War Z, and even in video games like Assassin's Creed. It's about a story starting off with the protagonist having a despicably happy life, but then the ones the protagonist loves die, or they get separated. It's basically the get together again or the avenged my loved ones cliché, but what makes it more annoying is that it has much more exposition. We actually get to see one or more scenes with the protagonist and the loved ones, even though you know they're going to die. It's a good thing when a movie tries to develop characters in order to make you feel sorry for them, but when the characters have no personality besides being happy, they're just bland and boring. All I do is wait for them to die and for the actual story to begin.
It is a good life we lead, brother.
The best. We will! Father!
The movies that use this cliché rarely build up to a good story. I like it more in a movie like Desperado, where you don't get to see the actual happy life, but instead the story begins after the tragic event, keeping the reason why he wants revenge a mystery until later on in the movie. Number 7. Villains that don't take their chances to kill the protagonist.
I could squash you like a bug right now, but I'm offering you a choice.
This cliché happens during a showdown between the hero and the villain. The villain can kill the hero but decides to talk instead, allowing the hero to either escape or to fight back. This usually happens in action movies like the Avenger movies, Die Hard, Kick-Ass, or the James Bond franchise. If the villain doesn't want to kill the hero, there needs to be some kind of explanation for it.
And I won't kill you, because you're just too much fun.
These movies, however, don't. The worst use of this cliché I've seen is in the latest movie of The Lone Ranger. Here it doesn't happen once or twice. It happens around 7 times, and both the villains as well as the heroes do it. This cliché is used as a poor excuse to let the hero survive and to make the villain look dumb, and I've seen this cliché enough.
We've been here before, haven't we?
Number 6. Don't let the dog die. If a dog plays a big part in the movie, The dog is easily a likable character. Some of the saddest moments I have seen in movies or TV shows in the last few years actually had to do with dogs. But some movies, instead of making the dog an important part of the story, use it as a very cheap excuse to make you feel sad. Or, in movies like Independence Day and Amityville Horror, it is used as a plot device to make the characters do something stupid. In Amityville Horror, the father actually returns to the horror house after he and his family escaped just to save the dog, risking the lives of both himself and his family. In a real-life situation, the dog would have been left for dead. It is also horribly used in Man of Steel. When they're stuck in traffic and a tornado approaches, they manage to escape, but the father returns to the car to save the dog. He ends up dying, but the dog survives. This seems like the most stupid decision this father could make. If you want to make us feel sorry for a dog, or make a character go through a dangerous situation in order to save it, make the dog an actual important character in the story. Not like these movies that use it as cheap tricks. Number 5. The fake death. This is when the movie wants you to believe a character is dead, but obviously the character lives. It is often used as a sad moment or a plot twist attempt. It is a cliché used in a ton of animated movies, but also in The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Ted, Paul, and many others. What makes this so uninteresting is that it has been done to death. Every time a movie uses it, all I do is wait for the character to reveal he or she isn't dead. It feels like the movie pauses for a moment, at the very climax of all things, and then continues to wrap up the story. Because of this, it is almost never sad when a movie uses the cliché, nor is it interesting for the plot. Whether the character survives without real harm or passes out for a moment, the character is okay in the end. Do we really need to waste that extra time? However, the fake death works in movies that make fun of the cliché. Movies that use it as a joke, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Crank 2, and The Avengers.
What just happened?
I hope not to see this cliché again in the future, except when it is used for jokes. Number 4. An overuse or just an uninteresting use of musical songs. I don't necessarily dislike musical movies, but what bothers me about them is that most of them overuse singing. Singing can be an interesting thing in movies, for example, in the old Disney classics, but for me, the difference between Disney classics and musical movies like Sweeney Todd, Moulin Rouge, Les Miserables, or even Frozen is that the songs are better and more properly used. In most musical movies, it sounds more like they're singing dialogue instead of an actual song.
Dear Fontaine, you must send us more money. Your child needs a doctor. There's no time to lose. Give the letter to me. It is none of your business.
And there's usually only a short break in between them. The songs are often used as an excuse to give an otherwise bland character some kind of development, or the songs are just timed weird. Again, I don't hate musical movies, but I think most of them would have been better off if they removed a couple of songs. Number 3. Camcorder horror and thriller movies. One of the first big camcorder movies is the Blair Witch Project. Personally, I thought it was a clever and interesting movie. The fact that it was filmed like a home video made it look more realistic, and because it looked more realistic, it was scarier. However, this style got overused really fast. Later came movies like Cloverfield, Wreck, The Last Exorcism, Troll Hunter, and the Paranormal Activity series. Usually it starts off like an ordinary home video that introduces you to the characters and explains what kind of situation they live in, and it is followed by a strange event which slowly builds up to scarier moments. The formula is so predictable that it's just boring to watch, even when they use different themes or try to make it more disturbing. More disturbing isn't necessarily more interesting if the story is the same. The reason this cliché isn't higher on the list is because although the cliché is about an entire movie instead of just a small part, I don't really despise these movies. I just think most of them are boring, but if I watch them with friends, it's doable. Just okay. Number 2. Love at First Sight. This cliché is about two characters seeing each other for the first time and they're immediately in love. In most cases, all they have to do is look at each other and you can call every single scene they have afterwards. Why I hate this cliche so much is that it creates such bland and predictable characters that you have seen so many times before, and that is often used as a cheap excuse to make the characters look more developed than they actually are.
You're all I ever wanted. You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
What else is there?
This cliche is used in some comedies and adventure movies, but mostly in musicals and animated movies. In the movie How to Train Your Dragon, there is a brief moment where the protagonist looks at the girl and just stares at her a couple of seconds, full of amazement. From that point on, the girl's nothing but a total bitch to him. Unkind, uncaring, and constantly mocking him. It's not until 45 minutes in that they actually get to know each other, and it turns out she can be a likable character. Since the movie announced they were going to end up together anyway, every scene with this character in the first 45 minutes felt pointless. If anything, he doesn't have any reasons to like this character besides the love at first sight cliche. There's never another moment that establishes an interest in her. If you look at the story as a whole, the entire love story could have been cut out and nothing would have changed. In both Sweeney Todd and Les Miserables, a side character that you never get to know well sees another character that, although important to the story, you don't get to know well either. From that point on, he dedicates his life to be with her. No clear reason, no build-up, and there are no interesting scenes with them afterwards. It's just a cheap love at first sight trick. Also, singing about someone doesn't count as development.
Heart full of love. No fear, no regret.
Don't get me wrong, this cliche can actually work if the character it happens to is likable to begin with, and if the scenes between the characters are done with enough believability. But when it's used to push the plot forward or to give characters some kind of development, it's torturously boring to watch. It's bland, predictable, and affects the story and characters. Please don't ever use it again. Number 1. Stupid protagonists in horror movies. I have to be honest here. I hate at least 90% of the horror movies out there. The stupid protagonists cliche sums up most of the horror movie cliches very well. Which cliches am I referring to, you ask? Let me tell you. They always go to places where they're alone and no one can find them, usually in the woods or creepy towns where no sane person would ever want to go. This makes the reason why the story exists in the first place seem really stupid. They never double check if the killer is dead, allowing the killer to either come back and kill them in an anticlimax or allowing him to come back in a sequel. They always trip whenever someone chases them. Cars don't seem to work when they're in panic. There's at least one other pointless moment that scares the character, like a black cat, a mirror, a random phone ringing, or when someone grabs their shoulder. Why do so many people grab their shoulder? Is it so hard just to call their name? They never see the killer even though he is standing right behind them.
Behind you. I'll turn. Behind you.
They always split up when it's obviously safer to stick together. They never try to defend themselves. I mean, seriously, why doesn't anyone, besides the protagonist, ever try to kick the monster in the face or grab an object in order to defend themselves? They never seem to escape whatever threat they're facing. Even when the killer is really slow, they, for some reason, still can't outrun him. They always trust strangers that you obviously shouldn't trust. Instead of walking away from danger, they explore it, making sure there's no way back. Whenever they're in danger, they can't seem to contact the outside world. If they actually do succeed in contacting the outside world, they're contacting just another villain who gets them back to the killer. There's always an excuse for them to face the threat again in a sequel if they for some reason made it out alive. And last but not least, what's with this virgin protagonist bullshit? What does it all add to the story? Why is sex an instant death signature in these movies? The virgins are usually kind and pretty girls, which feels less likely than, let's say, an unconfident person who feels uncomfortable having physical contact.
Oh my god, Randy, I thought you were dead.
I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin.
From the movies I have seen, the only ones that use these cliches that actually work are Scream, the original Halloween, and the original Nightmare on Elm Street. In Halloween, the characters aren't aware of the threat that is stalking them, and when the protagonist gets aware of it, she tries to get help and even fights back. It isn't about a group of horny teenagers going to an abandoned place. It's about people who live their daily life and suddenly get stalked by a mysterious figure. This makes the decisions the characters make seem much more logical. The same goes for the Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't enjoy these cliches and I don't need to see any more of them. So that was my top 10 worst movie cliches. I hope you enjoyed it and thanks for watching.